Welcome to the Profitable Franchisees podcast, the podcast where we bring stories and strategies to help you to be a more profitable franchisee. I'm excited today because we've got Ben Davis here, who is a bit of a rare breed in Australia. Very few franchisees become multi-unit franchisees, and that is that they own more than one franchise within a brand. But even rarer in Australia is a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee where they have multiple franchise units within one brand, but they also have multiple units in another brand. This is kind of quite common in the US, but in Australia it's very rare that franchisees own multiple units, let alone in multiple brands. And I remember chatting and sitting with Ben at one stage, I think it was last year, we chatted out at one of his locations. And what I loved most about Ben was that he was right on to his numbers. And if you know me, I love knowing the numbers of your business, and it's so important. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, welcome, Ben. Thanks for joining us today. What I want you to do,
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. What I want you to do for a start is tell us how you got into the first franchise brand and how you turned that into multiple units. When did you start to expand from one location to multiple locations in your first brand? Tell us a bit about your story.
Sure. So the first franchise that my wife and I purchased was with the Athlete's Foot, and it was actually my uni job. It was just the casual job that I was doing while I was studying at uni, and I got 6 months left of my degree to go, and woke up one morning going, I got to go to uni today. So I just didn't go. I just didn't go to classes that day. And I had 3 classes on, and I just had no intention whatsoever of doing that. The next day I woke up and went, oh, fantastic. It's a work day. Super keen. Let's go. And had a bit of a light bulb moment and kind of went, you know what? This is my passion. This is what I like doing. And this is what motivates me. So I went to work. I rang my boss at the time, and I said to him, hey, I'm thinking that I'm just going to quit uni and I want to come work for you full time, and I want to buy your shop from you. To which he said, go away, because it was only a couple of months old. But I did explain to him, no, I want you to train me, coach me, teach me how to actually understand the in and outs of a business, and then go from there. And so we worked on a 5-year plan. That was the goal. 5 years for me to work for him, understand the businesses, and then purchase my Athlete's Foot store from him. And yeah, so worked for 5 years. I ended up staying with him for 2 years, moving over to another franchisee and managing their store for them for 3 years, and then got the phone call. And true to his word, we went through the conversation, and I gave him every cent that I had to my name, and I purchased the store from him.
Just out of interest, what were you studying at uni?
Education. So I was going to be a drama and English teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay. I can kind of see that. To be honest, I didn't actually know that about you and your story. So that was a little eye-opener for me as well. So but you got your first location at Athlete's Foot. What's it about it that you went, I love my job? Like when you went, I love it, because that was pretty straight up to say, hey, not only do I want a job, but I want you to coach and train me so I can own one. What was it about it that really captured that passion inside of you?
Being a 22-year-old and just full of bravado. That was kind of it. Just thinking that I could do this. I really enjoy 2 major things with the Athlete's Foot, and that's the knowledge and the product knowledge, but also the customer service. Really love getting to know people, and I have built relationships with people that are still coming to see me now, that that I'd served when I was 22. They've always been sort of my customers. It's phenomenal. The January just gone, I actually had a very aged moment for myself. I had a customer come in for their child to buy their prep shoes, and the dad sort of pulled me aside at the end, and he's like, do you know that you actually sold me my grade 1 shoes?
Oh, no.
That was yeah, that aged me a lot that day. But I did love that was multi-generational, and I'm at that stage now.
It's always exciting when you have that age moment. I had one start of the year or late last year. I was doing a training for a team, and one of the girls in the team, it was her 18th birthday, and I realised that I've been coaching longer than she had been alive, and it made me feel
Yeah,
like,
I've been out
yeah,
of school than most of my staff have been alive.
that's it. So you had your first Athlete's Foot location. What made you jump into the next location? How many did you end up with?
So I had two Athlete's Foot stores. I'm now back to one. I ended up moving one of them on. So I had two locations. So again, I kind of work on a 5-year plan. So I had my Athlete's Foot store for 5 years from 2012. And then in 5 years' time, a store basically in the territory over from me became available. And I wanted to expand. And so it was a really, really good opportunity. The shopping center was in a redevelopment stage, so there was potential for very early growth once that development was through. So we kind of knew we had to grind for 12 months and then we'd have growth sort of coming through while we waited for the development to finish. So it was a really good opportunity. It gave me 12 months to set a culture and a standard that I wanted. And then when we had that new influx of customers coming to the New Butte shopping center, we were ready to go.
Just in case for our listeners, if you're not picking up on some of the things, the lessons you need to hear from Ben, something that I notice in all top performers, you've said a couple of the key words that top performing franchisees say, and that's, customer service is a passion and you really love doing that. And then also around team and culture. And so I just wanted to highlight that in case everyone's just listening to your story going, oh, that's lovely, that's lovely. There's some little keys in some of the things that Ben is saying that you really need to take on board and to put into your own business. So we're now two Athlete's Foot. I don't know how to say that plural. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
I can't really call them athletes' feet, can we?
Feet, yes. So how did you then decide to go into another brand and to actually start expanding there? What was the trigger point where you went, okay, let's give this a go?
This was entirely not my decision. I bought a birthday voucher for my wife, actually a Valentine's Day voucher for my wife for City Cave. So I bought her a couple's float and a sauna combination, so that we could do something romantic together and all that sort of stuff. So we went to our local center at Springfield, which was just down the road, and did the float, did the sauna. Was absolutely fantastic. I loved every single bit about it. The sauna was amazing. The float, I fell asleep and snored the whole way through it. It was brilliant. So we came out of there and I'm going, oh, wow, this was amazing. And my wife said, I hate you. That was the most annoying experience ever, having to do that float with you. So I bought her another one to do by herself. But in saying that, we walked out of there and she just went, I just love this place, this energy, what it's done for me, all of that sort of stuff. So when we actually reflected on what the experience was, and she just turned to me and said, all right, we need to buy one. So we did our due diligence, checked the numbers, checked out what the brand's culture was, did all of those things that we needed to do. Had an interview with Tim and Jeremy, the founders, and they just said all the right things for us and what we were looking for to get, to show some stability within the brand, but also to give us an emotional stability as well. And so we went, yeah, brilliant. Let's pull the trigger. And we went searching for a site.
And so you started with one, but now how many do you have?
We have 3 now.
3 now. Interest, because you said you had 2 athletes' feet and then you back down to 1. I always see with multi-unit and especially multi-franchise brands, they understand when it's time to get in, but they also understand when it's time to maybe move one on, because you have to understand when you've got 4 or 5 different businesses going, sometimes you say, hey, you know what, now's a good time to exit this location. Do you ever have those thoughts when you're looking through your business, like looking at your portfolio and saying, when is a good time to move on and when's a good time to keep? And because you're thinking differently than just a standard single owner franchisee.
100%. And that's why we actually moved on our second location for the Athlete's Foot. It was had the potential to just really be a great store, but it needed more intimacy. It needed someone to be in there far more than I could be in there for multi-site. I sort of had that conversation with my old boss and sort of said to him, look, this is kind of where I'm at. And he was interested in buying it. So this was the one that I went and worked for, not the guy that I originally purchased my first shop from.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of young kids that were working for him that wanted to get into the franchise. So had that conversation with them, and I sold it on to one of these younger guys who wanted to start his own franchise, which was fantastic. We're actually in that process now as well with one of the city caves. So we've been able to identify with our Cairns site, because it is a remote. It's at the point now where we have been able to grow it to what we can from a remote perspective. But the city cave business model really does require a lot of involvement with the community. It is a very emotionally based business. So it needs community engagement and things like that. And we just can't do that in a regional community that we're not a part of.
And the reason I got you to talk about that is I know a lot of franchisees, they have this perception that they're not supposed to sell. You're supposed to keep it, and you keep growing it until it's successful. But when you're a multi-unit franchisee, you look at it differently of what's going to give me, I always say, what's going to give you the most bang for your buck? And as you said, like Cairns is a remote location. You know, I can remember talking to Melissa, especially around the time of cyclones and things, of having to go up there and spend a week up there. And you've got 2 young kids as well and multiple locations that you might go, well, actually that time would be better spent on a location closer to home and we'll get more growth. So it's really important. But that all comes back to what we're talking about today, about knowing your numbers. So let's take a little...
And knowing your limitations too.
Absolutely. So let's take a little step back and talk about knowing your numbers. So how often do you really sit down and dive into your numbers, and what sort of numbers do you think you need to know in your business? Like, what sort of numbers are you tracking to sort of make sure your business is, one, on track, but also that where opportunity to grow it would be?
That's a pretty complex question.
Yeah, of course. So simplify that for us.
Sure. Look, it depends on the time of the year. And it also depends on what position your cash flow is in, to what numbers you're focusing on. So I tend to focus on a lot of top line numbers for a weekly glance, especially when the cash flow is in a steady position. But when it's more tighter and that sort of stuff, we always have those ebbs and flows in cash flow, right? That's just the joys of business. So when you're in that tighter part of the cycle, I tend to look every couple of days and I look at my controllable items. So fixed costs and things like that, they're here nor there. You can't do anything about those. So, but those controllable KPIs and those controllable items, they're the ones you really need to focus on, because they're the incremental growth that make the month profitable or break even.
So give us an example of a controllable item that you would look at.
Sure. So controllable items are simple things like, so for the Athlete's Foot, for example, it's stock management. You're talking about a business that works on a high revenue, lower GP model, because essentially half of your income goes to COGS. You've got to buy that product to sell it. So stock management and making sure that you're not sitting on aged inventory, especially on product that churns every 3 months, every quarter. You need to be really, really aware of your stock management, and that's something that's controllable, because the last thing you want to do is get to that end of season looking at new product coming in and going, I've got to discount all of this. It's the last thing you want to be doing, because that's just eating into all of the GP that you've built throughout that quarter. So, you know, your top line numbers, revenue, your GP, average transaction values, with the Athlete's Foot, your returns and exchange rates and percentages, your transaction counts, first time customers, they're the kind of lines that I focus on.
So if you heard that and you didn't write them all down, just rewind on the podcast and go through them again. Because I think there's a couple of things there you said that a lot of people don't know. Is like you said, it changes because of your cash flow. Many franchisees are not actually monitoring their cash flow. They go, oh, there's money in the bank, so we must be okay. But it's something you need to control. It's a moving target at all points in time. And, your numbers all affect each other. The way they go, the things that you've talked about, like stock control to gross profit, it can actually affect each other. And if you're not all over your numbers, then how do you know what to fix and what to change and what to pull back on and what to spend more on? So do you find that your numbers between Athlete's Foot and City Cave is different? Like, are you looking at different things?
Very, very much so. City Cave, for example, has a lot of future purchase. So they'll buy gift cards, they'll buy packages and things like that. And that will, that's just money that you can't spend now. You need to leave that until it's been redeemed. So we tend to take that money and put it in a different bank account until it's redeemed, and then we can put that back into the cash flow. So that way we can manage the honesty of where our money is.
Yeah, it's really easy, especially with things like gift cards, to spend the money today, but then you forget that you've got to actually provide that service or product down the future line, and that's going to cost you money. And if all of a sudden, think like at Christmas where it's a prime gift card sale, if lots of them are coming in February, you could have half or more of your business coming through of people just redeeming a gift card. I see this a lot in any of the industries where you have gift cards, think beauty industry, all of those ones where people are getting gift cards. And usually it's not profitability that knocks people out of business. It's actually cash flow.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just consider it money that you don't have yet.
So when you're tracking your numbers, is that just something that you've got really good at, that you can just look at it and you're just doing it in your head? Or do you and Melissa sit down and have a discussion about it? Or how do you actually track them? Is it just that you've got a good feel for it, or do you do something specific?
We can, our POS system allows us to run reports that allow us to see what we've sold in gift vouchers and also what have been redeemed. So we can kind of use that information. I mean, look, when cash flow gets tight, if we have to dip into that money, then so be it, right? Like, it's not like it doesn't exist at all. But the more we can not have to utilize that, just puts us in a safer position for rainy days.
Absolutely. Can you give us an example, maybe? This might be a bit of a tough question. Can you give us an example where you really made a decision for your business based on the numbers? Like something you looked at and it may not have seemed logical, but you knew the numbers and you went, no, this is a decision that needs to happen. And what actually happened after you made that decision based on the numbers?
So probably one of the easiest ones that I can make for that would be to do with the Athlete's Foot. And the big thing with that was that we had a really, really strong history with leather cross trainers. And we had history of, 5 or 6 years worth of sales data on that product. But over a 12-month period, we kind of really realized that it was eating into our income, and that the purchase trend from customers had changed. And we couldn't necessarily see that until we started looking at what products we were discounting more regularly, what was eating into our purchasing, and they're definitely not churning through. So it meant that we kind of needed to understand our customers a little bit better. So we looked at why people were buying cross trainers, and that market was disappearing. And that was because people that were traditionally buying cross trainers were people that were traveling more, or they were only doing one kind of activity that required a cross trainer. So they were playing tennis or those sorts of things. Whereas the market kind of changed in the sense that everybody kind of started doing more hybrid activities. They wanted a shoe to do multiple things at once. So they wanted a shoe that they could run in, but also play a little bit of tennis and do all those sorts of things. So that cross training market was just dying. It went from being around about 13 or 14% of our turnover to 2.5%. But we were stocked for that 12% worth of market. So we just basically had to pull back, use that money to then buy more running shoes and more hybrid-based shoes, because that's what our market demanded. And we couldn't see that until we started looking at the data and realizing that we were shooting ourselves in the foot. So we were able to take that money, invest it into product that was more suitable for what our customer demand was. And that then led to an immediate increase in sales and a decrease in discounting.
And, I always say to clients, when you say the word discounting, I say just instead of saying discounting, say I'm taking profit from my pocket, because that's exactly what discounting is. So, and I mean, that's the truth. Like, how many times are people in business making decisions without actually knowing the numbers behind it to see what the facts are? And the thing about numbers is they're black and white. They don't lie to you. It's right there in front of you. So how many team do you have across your 4 locations? How many staff do you have around about nowadays?
So between our 4 locations, including the contracted massage therapists that we have, so they're not employees, but they're contracted, we have just under 80 staff. 80.
Wow. Okay. So, that's not a small business anymore. Small business is under 20 staff. So that's a considerable amount.
It's under 20 per location, right? Ish.
Yeah. So each one is a small business, but together they're not. So it's really important when you're looking at the numbers of your business and, because knowing your numbers, you're going to be setting targets, you want your team. How much do you share with your team about the numbers and how do you communicate that to them? Which numbers do you share? Which numbers don't you share? Is it different for different people, different brands?
I think Melissa and I are extremely different in the answer to this question. And I think that a few people are going to listen to this and go, this bloke's an idiot. I don't think that this is actually a numbers question. I think this is a cultural question.
Okay.
And so Melissa and I share absolutely everything with our staff. Everything from the junior casuals to the management staff. If they want to see a P&L every month, they're more than welcome to see it. I will even show them our cash flow position if they want to see it.
And the funny thing is, you said people think that you're an absolute idiot for doing that. From my experience, the most successful business people do have an open book policy. They do share that with their team because what you hit on was absolutely right. It's actually cultural. It's not actually sharing numbers. And most people are scared to share their numbers with their team because they go, oh, but if I'm making too much money, my team will think that I'm ripping them off. But if you treat your team well, they actually want to support you. And I've met a lot of your team. And your team absolutely adore you and Melissa. Like, they adore you. Like, they would do anything for you. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's something that's built.
I think because Melissa and I both started in our industries at that bottom rung. Melissa's a beauty therapist by trade. So she started in that apprenticeship position and that training position. I started as a casual uni student. And I think that a lot of the time when we have to make a hard decision, we always reflect on how that would affect us if we were that casual still. So we look at what that decision will be. And sometimes, it's inevitable. You have to make that hard call and it's going to be detrimental for them. But if you can counter that and sort of always at least have that in mind. But if they can see the numbers and that sort of stuff, that then gives you transparency to explain to them why those decisions might be made. And it makes a huge, huge difference to acceptance and also the resistance of them kind of going, oh, they're just doing it for money. Mm-hmm. They're just being greedy.
Yep. How much responsibility do you give your managers in each location around the numbers? I'm assuming you set targets with them. They know what needs to be happening within their location. Do you also place some responsibility on them to help you to improve those numbers and to help you make decisions?
Absolutely. We're in a different position with the location. So my manager that I've got at the Athlete's Foot is a unicorn. I've had her for 11 years. So she is very much there. And the manager that was there before her still works in the center as well. So she's been there for 14 years. But she decided to go and have babies. So now she only works casually. Right? Just work for a living. Come on. So my manager at the Athlete's Foot has a very, very good understanding of the business. And so I allow her to make the call on a lot of things. She still has to run it by me and explain, her thought process behind those sorts of decisions. But at the end of the day, I'm happy for her to make the call because the ownership and the responsibility is on her to fix it if it becomes a problem.
That's incredible. Have you ever considered going into a third brand, or is that just one step too far at the minute?
Never. Never a step too far. But there's a bunch of caveats to that as well. So it needs to be something. It needs to be something that I'm actually going to be passionate about and that I want to actually give my time to. But it also needs to be. It also can't be at the detriment of my other businesses. So I have to be able to time manage it properly. It has to be that Melissa and I both really want to put that effort in and that energy in, and it cannot take away from our family. We're already time management poor sometimes. So to go into another franchise, it would probably have to be one that's more passive based, that doesn't require as much contact time for us.
That actually leads really well into my next little question that I wanted to ask you. That's not to do with numbers, but more around just running a business. So, we've mentioned Melissa lots here, but, what are some things that you and Melissa do to not only work together as a married couple, but you're also running multiple businesses, which takes to the next level of complication, but also you have a couple of young kids that you're also doing. You sort of mentioned that with family time and time management. How do you guys make it all work?
As soon as I work that out, I'll let you know. I think the two main things are communication and time management. So, we have a live calendar that we both use. So we put things in there, whether it's stuff that we need to do for the kids, things that need to be done for the shops, when the invoices are needing to be paid, when I need to go do staff training, when Melissa has to fly up to Cairns to be there with those guys. Like, we just try and communicate and schedule ourselves as much as possible. And then each morning as well, over the morning coffee, we kind of ask each other, so where are you going to be today? What's on your agenda? And those sorts of things, so that we kind of know where each other are. And then I can also sort of go, okay, so what do you need help with? What can I help you with? Or what can you help me with this today? And those sorts of things, so that we can make sure that we stay on top of everything as much as possible. But it also means that come 2:30, we're out. So the moment we have to go pick the kids up from school, we are out. That is our day, until we have had time with the kids, had proper family time, done dinner, done homework, actually had some family interactions with the kids. And then once they're kind of in bed, sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock-ish, then it's back into it. So we'll grab the laptops out and do what needs to be done then. Or if we've really had a good day, we might be able to just zonk out on the couch for a minute.
The thing that I, as an observer of watching and seeing you and Melissa in action, and without you even realizing I was sometimes observing you, the thing that I've noticed the most about it is you're actually each other's greatest cheerleader. You're extremely respectful and understand, the value the other person brings. And I think that's something that many people in business with their partner need to remember, that they're not just they don't get the worst of you. You're there to actually support them the best. And the time that I saw that the best was, a lot of people may not realize this, when you have a business in Cairns, you're going to have an experience where you're going to have some sort of major weather event, and you went through a complete cyclone, which is really hard because people forget that a cyclone may seem like it's only a weather incident for a week, but what that does to the community and impacts every business in the area can go for a period of time. And I remember, because we were having a chat, I was doing some work with City Cave and we were having a chat about it, and I was saying it was amazing how well you guys had bounced back from that. And I loved it because you sat there and said, well, it was all Melissa. She got up there, she was doing the work, she was making it happen. And I think that's kind of a key to success. And I don't know how to teach that to other people, but it's something that I notice that you do very well, is how you actually support each other. Is that something you guys just, because you've mentioned culture a lot. So is that something you've purposely made sure you do? Is it something that's just come naturally? How?
Look, he's a superstar. So I've got to eat humble pie, right? I know what her strengths are. She knows what my strengths are. So we play to those. We know what we both do best. And so, yeah, just play to our strengths. Melissa is amazing at organization and just getting stuff done. You know, I'm very be with training and culture and sales perspectives and things like that, and looking for community engagement and involvement and things like that. That's my wheelhouse. I get to be the social butterfly. Um, so we just play to each other's strengths, and she is. I wish she was more confident in herself to do this sort of thing, these sorts of interviews, because I think she would give you a phenomenal perspective as well, outside of what I see.
Oh, we'll have Melissa on one day, that's for sure. And I agree. If you're listening to this, Melissa, have the confidence because you're amazing. She really is. So
She
if you
really
had
is.
a piece of advice for franchisees on how to be more profitable in their business, what are some of the key things that you would recommend? You're sitting in front of a franchisee who says, Ben, you've got decades of experience in franchising and business. What's some of the stuff I really need to get right to be more profitable?
Um, it's a tricky answer, but because it's confronting. But the simple, honest answer to that is, you can't get tied up in the things you can't control. That is the complete and utter honesty of it all, right? There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of external things that are really, really easy when times get tough for you to just blame it on those. Right? Interest rates are high. Everyone's doing it tough. There's a cost of living crisis. These are all things that are global. You have absolutely no influence on those. So stop giving them your energy. Just don't give it your energy. Focus on what you have that you can control. So focus on making sure that the product that you are delivering is exceptional. That 1%er that makes a difference to a customer, to a guest, blows them away, because that's the thing they're going to remember, and that's going to make them come back. Single transaction businesses die. Return businesses are the ones that the return customers and that have that really good customer flow and retention. They're the ones that thrive. So do the things that are customer centric. And then on top of that as well, do the things that make your staff want to be at work as well. Because if they are living and breathing the culture and they have emotionally bought in to what you're doing, they're going to stick around. And you would talk about profitability. The most expensive thing you can do is train more bloody staff.
It is so true. It's absolutely so true. I love that you talk about, like, you've got to, block out some things. And in franchising, that's a huge one. I often say to franchisees, you need to put the blinkers on and run your lane, because there's not even external global noise. We're talking there can be noise within a franchise group of franchisees who are going, oh, this isn't working, this isn't right. And it's like, well, but is that the truth for you? That might be the truth for them, but that's not necessarily the truth for you. Don't let them drag you down. How do you find your success within a franchise group with other franchisees? I always say the best thing about a franchise is you can talk to all the other franchisees. The worst thing about a franchise is you can talk to all the other franchisees. How do you use that franchise peer-to-peer support for your success? What's some tips around that?
Understand when you're inside an echo chamber as well. So identify that. Like there's going to be noise, and majority of the time, a lot of that's going to be negativity. Because especially currently, right? Like there's a lot out there. Business is tough and all of that sort of gear. So it's really, really easy to get bogged down in that negativity. But Melissa and I think the answer to that Melissa and my motto for this year, because 2024 was a tough year, right? It was a tough year for everybody. So our motto for 2025 is 2025 positive vibe. So we're looking for the silver lining. Something goes wrong, that's fine, good. Let's find the silver lining to this on what it is that we can then use to improve. So I'll listen to other franchisees when when they're having their moment, because it might be something that I actually haven't identified myself yet. But that then allows me to go and fix that problem before it becomes a big problem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ben. I love chatting to you, and we will absolutely get Melissa on at some stage. I think we'll convince her to get in front of a camera some way. But tell us about where to find your locations. Where's your Athlete's Foot? Where are your city caves? And I'll make sure I put in the show notes links to all your socials, etc. But tell us where you're located, so if people want to come and get some new shoes or have a float, they know who to come to.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tracey. So our Athlete's Foot store is at Springfield in Queensland, near Brisbane, so west side of Brisbane. So is one of our city caves is in Springfield as well. And then if you go a little bit further west, we've also got a city cave at Ipswich. And then obviously we've got our city cave up in Cairns as well. So really, really amazing community up there. And we just, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, if you've enjoyed the interview with Ben today, make sure if you're seeing this on socials or if you're seeing it on where you listen to podcasts, make sure you put a comment below and thank Ben for his time. Just as a reminder to you all, if you haven't yet signed up for the Franchisee Profit Pulse, my fortnightly newsletter that's an accompaniment to the Profitable Franchisees podcast, just head over to my website at traceyleak.com and sign up there. And we look forward to bringing you some more stories and strategies in the coming weeks to help you to be a more profitable franchise. Thanks again, Ben.
My absolute pleasure, Trace. Thanks for having the chat.